Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Gameable Audio. I am your host, Kristoffer Schenström, and this is episode 38. This episode is also sponsored by Nordic Game Conference, as we are recording live here in front of each other, me and Daniel. Is it Poole?
Yeah, man, you got it, yeah.
Awesome. First try, yeah. No, I actually met you here at the conference. You are a composer, and today is going to be a special about you.
Yeah.
Learning a little bit about you, who you are, and so on. And somewhere in the future, we will actually dive a little bit deeper on a specific soundtrack that you're going to release. So this will be more like an introductory episode.
Yeah, well, thanks, man.
So we will see if this will be like a shorter one or if we will actually sit and talk a little bit more like smaller in-depths and so on during this time. So I'm a little bit unsure exactly how long we'll be talking about this, but we have an exciting time in front of us, at least.
I'm excited. Thank you so much for having me, man. It's great to meet you.
Yeah, so for me, we have been talking a little bit during the conference and so on, but for everybody else who have not talked to you, like, who are you, where do you come from? We can start with that.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, yeah, my name's Dan. I'm from Australia, so I'm from Canberra, which is the capital. Not as many people know where it is. It's sort of 3 hours south of Sydney, a short drive for Australian standards, but maybe the Swedish are a bit more used to long driving too. But yeah, and I currently live in London. Just moved there a year and a half ago with my fiance. So we're, just doing the classic Australian thing where we're, relocating with our youth mobility visa, which if you're Australian, you should get on it if you can, while you can. I've been doing music forever. I think I first saw my sister's trumpet when I was 3 years old and she was 9 or something. Oh. And I was like, oh my God, this shiny trumpet is so sick. I need that thing.
So is this only through your sister, or do any of your parents, are they in musical as well?
Well, not really. Well, I mean, my mother, played piano when she was a girl, and I found out my great-grandfather played banjo the other day. Oh. I was like, whoa, okay. So I think it's kind of from there, but never in front of me. It was just I just like music and it's my thing. So it was kind of cool. Yeah.
So in all honesty, when thinking about having a sister playing the trumpet and so on, and you wanted to get into music as well, I'm guessing you kind of looked up to her in a much greater sense. I know sibling rivalries and so on can be a thing, but I know when they're usually much older, you usually tend to treat them like gods.
Well, yeah, I love my siblings, and Helen, who was she's 8 years older, so I would always try and hang out with her. I'd go cycling or running or whatever she was doing. I wanted to try. So
that's awesome
for sure, man. But the whole I guess music journey is, if I don't make it too long, is pretty fun. Started school bands as you might do. And then got into, you have some teachers that are really encouraging and some that aren't. And I had one, I was like, I want to train, I was playing saxophone at the time. And I was like, I want to go back to trumpet again. I changed schools at the time. Yeah. And the guy was like, no, you've been playing saxophone for 2 years. Why would you? No, you have to keep playing saxophone. I was like, nah, screw you, man. I quit. So I quit. And then I was like, oh shit, I don't have music anymore. So then I started playing guitar. I found a friend who's playing guitar and got into metal, got into rock, got into everything, and then eventually jazz, and then classical, and then orchestral, and it's just gone from there.
But was this more of a you wanted to try everything, or was it through a more organic kind of way? I started playing metal, and it's metal is kind of connected to classical music to some extent, and you went a more organic way, or was it more you found friends that had specific interests and so on?
It was I'd say both. A friend of mine who was super metalhead, was into Cradle of Filth. It was into really heavy stuff. So I was metal is the only thing I will ever listen to. That's it. Nothing else is cool. Everything else sucks. But then you listen wider. And you kind of learn. But yeah, it was gradual, very gradual. It wasn't I'm on a mission. But I guess now I'm on a mission to listen to as much as I can and see if I can write those styles. But so it was a cool, fun journey. It still is.
So considering in a young age you were looking into so many different genres and so on, was there at any point in time you felt I want to be more specialized in some certain genre?
Yeah. I think the metal thing was for sure. When I went through TAFE, which I guess is after high school, after college, we call it college, year 11 and 12. then yeah, we went to like this music school. It was just performance, and I was like, I just want to be a rock star. I just want to rock. I just want to play metal. I want to headbang, massive crowds and stuff like that. But then I learned about music production, and I was like, well, if I want to get really good, maybe I'll learn jazz. So then I went to university.
Yeah,
I did jazz guitar, and then I discovered classical composition as well. And I was like, ooh, orchestras, that's like the ultimate heavy metal. That's like the heavy metal from like 100 years ago. That's like fucking cool. So then it was like, all right, orchestral is like the ultimate thing for me. So that's where I've been focusing at the moment is on orchestral stuff, but then also on like electronics. So very different, but yeah, I love it. Anything musical.
So like super interesting as well, considering your passion going through, experimenting and so on. It's like when you went to university and everything, it still sounds like it was quite broad. It's like when do you think, like from the beginning, it feels like you wanted to be broad? Was there any specialization you wanted to do? It's like, hey, I want to make music for film, for example.
Yeah. For sure.
How did that pan out?
Well, yeah, dude, that was exactly it. So after my degree, I did an honors year, which was just purely focused on composition. And at that point in time, I'd done a lot of courses on obviously like classical composition. This one was with focus on film and video game. And I was like, all right, this is where I want it to be. I've I've actually found a direction. I don't want to be a rock star anymore. So I think that year was where I was really like, all right, I know where I want to be.
Yep.
Musically, and I found like working with film, while that was great, I've done heaps of it, but a few short films was a bit more like isolating. Whereas working in a game environment was like so much better just due to the team, like having the people around you and collaborating and like, yeah. So I think that year I went to some game jams and I went to some like meetups, indie meetups and stuff. And I was like, wow, these people are actually really cool. Like I always thought, I'm a gamer as well. So, but yeah, that was really where I was like, all right, I found my direction.
But I'm guessing you started playing video games when you were younger as well.
Oh, yeah.
You were still experimenting with all the different genres and so on.
Yeah.
Was it during the years of university that you thought like, oh, I can actually make game music? Or did you have like a passion that you wanted to make game music early on?
No, well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I knew I always liked writing music, and I've always loved games. And I never thought it was just as accessible as it is today, I suppose. It's like I always loved like Howard Shore from Lord of the Rings or Jeremy Soule from Skyrim. And I like that was when I was a teenager. I was like, dude, this music is so good. And yeah, I think from there I've kind of like, oh, actually I can do that. I've got the skills. I can make music, maybe not as cool as good as them, but on the way to their sort of level. So I think that was where it was kind of like.
So how old were you when you made like the first soundtrack for either a film or a video game?
One that was outside like a school project. Probably was like 2021 or so pretty old, to be honest, man. I was almost what
But 2021 seems like pretty young considering making movie or video game music though.
Yeah, because I went to uni very late in my life, I suppose. Like most people go when they're 18. I started when I was 23.
Okay.
So I was like probably like 25, 26, I think. So yeah, maybe like I'm 30 now. So it's pretty recent, I suppose. In the scheme of things. So. yeah.
But how you feel when you're in this sphere now of making and composing and so on? It's like, does it feel like everything is flowing on, like one job leads to another, or do you feel like it's struggling right now within the sphere of music? Because there's still a lot of composers out there.
That's right. Yeah, I totally agree, man. The trick obviously is trying to find projects that are flow on, but I think mine have been, because they're mostly indie, and some indies have funding, some indies don't. So they're going to be, I'm still working on a project from 2021, and the game is still in progress. So it hasn't ever stopped, but it's also come in waves. So I'd say in terms of income-based work, I think that's up and down, like for sure. So I've had to have regular jobs in between to kind of pay the rent, buy the food, but obviously the goal is to be full-time writing music. I just love getting that flow.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And also considering where you actually come from originally.
Yeah.
When you moved, how do you feel about getting the contacts and so on? Like now you're more centered in the world, being in Europe now, considering like being offshore.
Yes, yeah, dude. Oh man, no, as much as I love Australia, it is hard because it's limited in you know how. I mean, there's so many people there. Obviously, 20 million or 25 million people, but the games industry is quite small. So I think like a friend of mine who you'll be interviewing shortly, hopefully, Alec. He and I are both Australians, so we've had to, go overseas in a way to find more work, more opportunities, meet more people, come to amazing events like Nordic Game. And meet awesome people like you. Make new friends and hopefully new business. So it's a constant hustle, but I think one that's really worth it. Yeah. So being in London or close to Europe, or even it's like 10 hours to go to America, or 6 hours. I'm like, for me, that's like crazy. Like back home it's like 20 hours or something. It's like, and it's so much cheaper. So big factor.
That's a big factor. If it's cheaper as well, I mean, then the living cost is actually lower, so it's easier. So theoretically, you don't need to get like too much. Of course, more pay is always good. But in order to live at a good grade, you don't need to like super hustle all the time.
No. But in saying that, London is an expensive place to be. But I mean, it's nice to have that. Accessibility, I think, is the huge thing that like being near Europe and in Europe is helped so much with.
Also considering like since music is so subjective, it's like it's really hard to tell somebody. It's like, oh, I make great music, because it's subjective. To a lot of people, it can be like, oh, it is the best OST ever. I've never heard anything better than this. While others like, oh, it's the so negative and toxic comments. I'm not going to say it. But considering when you work with your passion and so on, and since you like to work with so many different genres and so on, is there any specific genre you have more passion for, that you more like love to write to?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a question as well that I get quite often, because I guess I'm such a generalist in background, but my true passion, where I get the most satisfaction from it, is definitely on the orchestral side of things. What I love to do is combine my guitar skills and experience with that. So if I can write really nice soaring melodies for strings and then add my guitar, or if I've got a really heavy section, I want to add the brass and the guitar together, or whatever it is. But I think that hybrid of orchestral and guitar is really my strength, and I love anytime I can play guitar. It's great. It's great. It's just when you're familiar with something like driving a car, riding a bike, something that's just so like second nature, you're just like, it's just easy.
It feels natural.
Feels natural, exactly. Yeah. But I love. I've written for orchestra and recorded orchestra as well. So I think that when I had the chance to do that, it was just like mind blowing, life changing, and I was like, oh my god, I need to do this. I need to do this forever. So I love it.
I feel like I hear so often that for composers, like the pinnacle of making and composing music is reaching that point to utilize an orchestra. But at the same time, it's really expensive working with orchestras as well. So many musicians and so on. And also when composing, I've talked to a couple of composers surrounding like composition for orchestras. That it's like you're putting all the amount of like you want to make your opus magnus and then you give the musical cheats to the orchestra, and they're like, I can't play this. Have you ever had any similar experiences where you work with an orchestra and you're overhyping it yourself, making it almost impossible for them to play it?
Yes, for sure. Like the recording session I had with the Budapest Scoring Orchestra, one of my scores had this really high trumpet part. Which by accounts of studying orchestration books and putting things in is doable, but certain players have certain ranges they can hit comfortably and good. Like it has to sound good, obviously. So a lot of the time, I had to, or not a lot of the time, I handed over to the conductor at the time, and he was like, "Oh, I think that high note, that high F or whatever it was, we need to drop it a bit just to make it sound a bit better and clearer, so the trumpet player can actually hit the note, because they rely on so much of their ear. Trumpet is one of those very oral, inner monologue, I guess, inner hearing of the voice of music, I suppose. Whereas, you know, a violin, you can just press down. You have to kind of know where it is. Obviously, there's no frets, unlike guitar. But the trumpet is very much like you've got to audiate. You've got to hear the note in your head before you play it. So if it's really high, really hard, then yeah. But that was, I think, the bit where I was like, oh, yep, shit, I messed that up. Fuck, okay, let's do that. And it sounded so much better.
And I'm guessing also we were just coming from this talk about monster voices and so on.
Yes.
And he was talking about sustainability as well. So I guess sustainability is something also is like, yeah, I can make that high note, but I can't do it for as long as this paper show.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's right. Like, people got to breathe, bro. Like, yeah. You're like, oh, God, how long does this note go for? And it's same with, like, the low instruments. They need a lot more air pressure, like a lot more like going right through. So, yeah, definitely got to consider people staying alive.
Yeah. And also what's so interesting with the orchestra, since you have all these different kind of instruments as well, it's like, do you have experience with all these instruments, or do you usually take in some other like third parties, like, hey, I want to make this, but I'm not good at like the string quartet or something like that?
Oh, I see. Yeah, well, thankfully, I'm really lucky with my university. We had a lot of great teachers that were the instrumentalists, so they would come in and show us how everything worked, and you know, all of that. As well as there were some, student groups that we could test our pieces on. So
that's nice.
I thankfully am quite confident with everything except for, not except for, but I think the hardest one to write for is the winds, like the woodwinds, just because each instrument is so unique. Whereas like brass is very homogeneous, like you can glue it together really well. Whereas the woodwinds are all unique. They have their own character, like in a game, I suppose. So yeah, you got to learn how the characters work and complement. And if you don't want them to complement, how that works too. You know, if you want it to be gnarly and fucking grating on each other, yeah, knowing that.
That's nice.
But
that's really, really nice.
Yeah,
so from when you started until up till now, how many soundtracks have you worked on? If we're talking more specifically about video games now.
Awesome. Yeah, I've got one soundtrack that's out at the moment. It's only on Steam at the moment for a game called Undying. So that one was very interesting, where it was, I took over from another composer halfway through the project. They couldn't continue working, so I had to kind of really emulate their style and sound. So that was a very challenging thing as a composer, because you want to lend your voice, your individuality to the soundtrack. But so in total, that was about 4 tracks of mine, 4 tracks of his, and they hopefully sound good together. But that's one of the soundtracks that's out. Got another one that should be coming out it depends when the game releases. It's always dependent. I'm working on 3 other games at the moment. One's called Ascending Inferno. That's probably the next one to come out, which we'll probably talk about, maybe next time we catch up. And Mooncorp Tower Defense has been one I've had for a long time, since 2021.
Okay.
But that's the one they're both based in Canberra, actually. In Australia, where I'm from. And then the most recent one is Lumi, which is actually a Finnish word I found out. It's a small studio I've made in London, and we're making like a action adventure platform. A very cute female lead protagonist, cute little raccoon, but that's more orchestral than anything. So
it sounds interesting with the different characters and so on. I have a game named Lumi. Because Lumi is luminous, like light. And so on.
Yeah.
So I was almost like, it's a game about stars or something.
Yeah.
Like that. No.
Well, it's called Lumi Starbound Adventure, actually, which is really very good. Yeah. That's it. So, but in Finnish, apparently it means snow or ice. I think snow or ice. I could be very wrong.
One of those.
Yeah.
Don't
hate us. Yeah. I'm Australian. I'm just Australian guy.
Never seen snow. Do you even have snow in
actually. It would surprise a lot of people. I live 2 hours from the biggest ski fields in the southern hemisphere, which there's only one.
Yeah.
Or 2.
But it feels so weird. It's like the stereotypical way when people are, at least like me, thinking about Australia is like deadly animals and always sun.
Sun, surfing, and then you can go surfing, and then at the other end of the day, like you can drive 4 hours and then ski.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, or snowboard, whatever you prefer.
That's really cool.
Go on your ass down the hill, whatever.
Nice. No, so back to the soundtracks.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's a little bit off topic there. No, but considering the soundtracks here that you have already released one, And this was, let's actually start a little bit with that one because it's so special. As you said, you kind of came in and took after another composer.
Yes.
You were both, he already worked on like a framework and so on, has 4 tracks ready. Or did you, was it 4 completed tracks or did you actually just complement these tracks
it was
in order to finish them?
only 2 that were complete.
Okay.
Which was another fun challenge, I guess, because the 2 complete tracks are really great to have a blueprint for what I should try and emulate further on.
Yeah.
But then 2 of the other tracks I arranged of his, which were in-game only at the time.
Okay.
They were in Fmod, which is a middleware software. You probably talked about this with other...
Yeah, sometimes we always tend to go back to VVice and Fmod and so on, but it's always great for people that are listening in for the first time. We can talk a little bit about it at least.
Sure. So I guess the short version is Fmod is a really great tool that a lot of composers and sound designers will use to implement audio into games, and we call that middleware. Because it's in between the middle of sound and the game engine. So
Yeah, the messenger.
the messenger carrying all the important messages to the gameplay, to the
this
players.
audio bit.
Please play this, and they're like or then there's the nice strings or whatever.
Yeah.
So the soundtrack, 2 tracks were only in Fmod at the time. So I took audio with permission, of course. The game company owns it. So took the audio and then rearranged that into 2 tracks of his. So I'm an arranger as well on those tracks. Added some extra, whooshes and swells and drums and whatever else I needed to. And then the other 4 tracks were solely composed and arranged by me. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was, when you got into the project itself, like how did you get introduced with the team and so on?
Yeah.
In order to get incorporated with the project? Like, was it like a banana peel skid that you just accidentally found them, or did they find you, or?
It was really interesting. When I was in Canberra, I worked in I was around this place called Game Plus, which was a community workspace for the game community. It was very small, and in terms of not many people. It was a big space, but pretty empty. And the community manager there, Jared Farquhar, he, if I pronounce his surname right, Farquhar Nickel, I think he's... Anyway, he's an amazing person, really good at connecting people. And he was like, hey, there's this Beijing-based dev company, but one of them's based in Canberra, where you are, and they need their audio, and they need audio, and they need music. So would you be interested? And I was like, hell yeah. I'll send him a message. And then I messaged the creative director, who's the one in Canberra. And we just made, little demos, tested it out, see if I would be a good fit. And the team couldn't tell the difference between my track and the other guy, the original one. So I was like, all right. And they were like, hell yeah. So
you were the old guy. You just changed name.
Yeah. The previous guy, I should mention, his name is Arjo Hutchings. And so he's an amazing composer. But
sweet.
I was, thankfully able to jump on board. So
yeah. It sounds great, like getting your start in that kind of sense.
Yeah.
But it feels very unique as well. It's like most of the times people are really struggling. They're making their own original music. They're trying different genres to see what's a good fit for them. But it feels like you're this like jack of all trades to some extent, at least. Yeah,
which I think I got from playing guitar so much because I did, metal stuff. I did jazz stuff. I did bossa. I did pop, like wedding gigs. I would do whatever the job was. But my guitar teacher at the time, he said, why not be a master? That saying, master of all trades. Sorry, what does it say? Jack of all trades, master of none. Right?
Exactly.
He's like, why don't you be? There's one other saying, which is jack of all trades, master of one. He's like, why don't you be jack of all trades, master of many? And I was like, okay, that sounds great. So that's kind of my attitude, at least, for music.
But it sounds like a good motto and good attitude to strive with this, because with that type of motto, it feels like you always strive for the next level.
Yeah, with everything.
Yeah.
Which means I'm always stressed about trying to get better at everything. So it's like, oh man. So
do you get hit by like the imposter syndrome? Like a lot of people in game development talk about the imposter syndromes. Like even if you've worked within video games and made a lot of games, people are still struggling with this.
All the time. Yeah, I think even I did a talk at an event like Nordic game in Australia. Got a speaker pass, which means you don't have to pay for the event. And it was like, oh, this is the speaker meetups, and I was just talking about what it's like to join a game halfway through, which we were talking about as well. And I felt like, yeah, such an imposter syndrome because I was this new kid on the block. You know, I'd only been there like in the industry with quotation marks, air quotation, for a year. I'd met like 10 people at that point, and then it was just like this whole world of amazing game devs, just like people just sitting in listening to me, and I was like, I don't think I should be doing this. Like, so yes, definitely.
But still, I think it's an interesting topic though to dive into because, as I said, I've been interviewing a lot of different composers all over the world, from like big games to smaller games.
Yeah,
and still, as I said, it's very unique to take over from somebody. You don't hear that often at all.
Yeah,
it's not a lot of composers that is, I would say, openly talking about maybe failures to some extent. It's like they didn't finish the project they were set on. Of course, there can be like if the company, of course, runs out of money.
Yes,
then of course it's not going to be a failure per se.
It's just a DNF. It did not finish. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is very unique in a way. I think. Yeah, there's always this thing of like if you're ever going to make it, you're going to be fired from something once. But maybe this guy, I don't know the full story. I think he maybe got a full-time job.
Yeah, I mean
in a studio or something.
To the thing, I think it's kind of irrelevant.
But but
still very unique. That's why I think it has some teachings to it as well. I mean, you have all the different kind of scenarios that can happen, or else we're only gonna hear all the time all these composers talking about their great successes and so on, or maybe they will talk about their like depression age or era where it's like, oh, it was really hard, I didn't feel like I fitted in anywhere, and then this game came along and changed my life.
Right.
All the time. It's always going to be this like epic tale. And you feel all of a sudden you heard it so many times.
Yeah. So this feels a bit different, I guess.
Yeah. It feels fresh to some extent. I haven't heard it before, and that's why I liked it so much, and that's why I think you shouldn't have imposter syndrome to that sense, because I don't think a lot of composers had been in that sense, because if somebody would only do a couple of songs and then leave the project, I get the feeling that most likely they will either scrap and just go with a new composer.
Restart. Yeah.
It's like rinse, repeat, make it like full.
Yeah. I think, well, the difference, I suppose, with this one in particular was because I think it was quite late in the development stage. So they already had a personality. They had some tracks released to public. Like they were already like, hey, this is a soundtrack demo. This is a first release, blah, blah, blah. So they had this identity that was already associated with the game. It was very emotional. It was like cello, violin, and piano. Like very much like, I think the mother is represented by the cello and the son is represented by the violin. So it was really this like meant to be really emotional and like tied to the narrative very strongly. So they're like, well, we're going to stick with it. Can you do it? And it was one of those, stay up late, try and get this demo done as soon as possible, get it through the door, and that to sell, I suppose, myself. And that, they have confidence that they can, count on it being good. So I guess, when someone's like, do you write good music? I'm like, well, yes. It feels like, a bit wanky, but...
Yeah, but you also put in the hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so.
Yeah.
No, I find it interesting all the times, considering all the work, as you're pointing out here. It's like you put in all the hours, you stayed up late and so on. Like considering work mentality, it's like usually people say like if you're working off the hours, you're not really resting, you're not but still it's a passion project itself. Like you would love to put in all these hours and you gladly do it because you will like grow as a musician and composer. But at the same time, have you worked a little bit more about like
more balance
in life to like shorten it down?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think I've been fortunate enough to be paid to write music, which a lot of people aren't. So when I have that opportunity to I don't have to work my day job, for example. I go, I've got a whole day. I can write music. Like this is insane. Pinch myself a bit, and then that way, I definitely have balance. But for example, if I'm doing, if there's no paid work at the time and I've still got to work my day job, I'll still, do some after hours work. But I maybe don't look after myself as good as I could. Work late, and then my fiance would be like, "Come on, let's go to bed." I'm like, "I just need to finish this little bit."
It's only 2 hours left.
Yeah, exactly. So I definitely need to keep that balance a bit better. But as I'm getting, as I'm getting older, I have like one gray hair. But yeah, I'm learning more and more that like caring for yourself and your body, your mind is so important. So yeah.
But do you also feel it that when you're actually more, I would say, when you have a better ritual on your daily life, do you feel like you're actually better and you try to have the discipline to follow it, but it's hard sometimes, but due to the passion pushing you through these boundaries?
Yeah, for sure. I think having I've got that time to be fresh, organized, or like you've had a good sleep. I think, you've got that time to actually play and be creative. Because if you have time to be creative, that's where you just play and you have fun, and that's where creativity will, bloom, I suppose. Where if you just have like an hour and that's it, you're kind of burnt out, you've got an hour, like nothing good. Just go to bed. Just go to bed.
Considering this as well, one thing I usually tend to like to talk with composers about, writer's block. It's like from time to time you always end up in this like, I don't know what to do. It's like you need to break the pattern, or you need to like push through.
Yeah.
What type of like composer are you? Are you the one who likes more to push through, or do you like to just break it up, take a walk or something in order to just keep that mind fresh?
I think I probably should walk more. I should go outside. But I tend not to get writer's block so much, which sounds, I feel like an asshole saying that. But
well, good for you.
I know, right? I just really rely on my training, I suppose, my music theory. Like it gets me out. I'm like, all right, what works over the top of this chord, or what chord would be next, or what arrangement. I just experiment, I think.
So you're leaning on to the theory then a lot.
If I'm stuck. Yep. Yeah. If there's nothing flowing, I'm like, if I'm not, it's not just coming out of the fingers or whatever, then I'm like, all right, let's analyze it. What am I doing? What's working? What's not working? Let's try something else. So I've got a big bag of tools. I'd say. So yeah, I mean, I should go for a walk too, and then I might get back in the flow easier, quicker. But I wouldn't say I bang my head on the wall too much. So
that would be costly in the end as well.
Yeah,
Bang on the wall.
Yes. All the plaster and paint.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. New bricks.
Like, was there a hole here yesterday? Yeah. I'm sorry, I got a writer's block.
Yeah, I got writer's block. I can't block up the hole anyway.
So within composition, there's from my understanding, there's still so many phases within composing and so on. Which one is your favorite?
I think I'm really good at starting projects, which everyone is. Them. Oh man, yeah,
a pure indie then.
Yeah, it's the concept phase is so fun.
Yeah.
I think obviously following through is the hardest thing, but in terms of composing itself, like I love sketching, getting the ideas, and then once they're all together and you like piece your puzzle, and it just flows. It sounds great. But I guess in terms of like like mixing and mastering and things like that, is that what you were kind of meaning, or?
No, it all depends. I mean, from the different phases you have when you compose. I mean, I only know like the general part of it. It's like right now you talked a little bit about the following through could be harder as well.
Yeah.
Is that the usual phase where you struggle the most, for example, like the follow through?
Yeah, I think so. It's so easy to start and so tricky to finish. But I think there's that. That mantra of like kill your darlings or kill your whatever that is. Get the ideas out, and then it makes room. Because oftentimes I'll like, let's do this, throw these drafts out, and they sound shit. I'm like, you know what? Nah, that's terrible. And then by the fifth time, maybe third time, I find the gold or the gem or something that at least works.
Yeah.
And I think having the feedback from the developers I'm working with or other musicians, that kind of critical, constructive feedback helps really point everything in the right direction a lot better. So working in games that collaboration. It's just what I'm about. Teamwork is great.
Teamwork is actually awesome. I love that, just getting that back and forth, the two-way kind of information going back and forth. For me, I've been doing a little bit of audio direction as well for a game called Legends of Libra.
Ooh,
but
nice.
Working with the composers there, I usually make spreadsheets and so on. And of course, this is unique to like every game company and so on. But I like to have something more visual, like a good overlook of what's going on with the project. And the composers just made the sounds from reference, what I specifically wanted. I usually point it out like, oh, I like this song, I like the style of it. But specifically what drives me and what I would like to have a reference to is like between like 6 seconds to 10 seconds is what I like the most, and then
Yeah.
they usually really deliver fast, and they really like outdid themselves on
Hell
that,
yeah.
because I was so thorough with like what I liked.
Yeah, that always helps.
Yeah.
Always. I wish more people were like you. Makes life easier.
Making podcasts.
Yes. Oh man, I think more podcasts are better.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course, it's always fun getting the education and so on and understanding. I think that's the most important part about podcasts and so on. It's not just people talking about anecdotes and so on, because I mean I can do that with my friends.
Yeah, true.
Like, it's only like super weird people that are interesting to listen to if you just want to listen to anecdotes.
Yeah, yeah. There's some great people here at the conference.
Definitely. Some really, really interesting ones. I love it.
Yeah.
This is why conferences like this are amazing
So
to start
good.
with. You never know who you're going to meet, like I met you.
Yeah, same. I met you as well. And yeah, and in calling back to what you were saying, the like the different processes that help in terms of more educational side of things, I suppose. Yeah, I'll always approach the devs or the director or anyone who's like the main level designer. Like, what vibe are you feeling for this? Like, what's a reference that you feel would fit, or what style we want to work for? There's a bit of thankfully not too much temp love, which may have been brought up before, I don't know, but where the team will use a track and they're like, oh, we need something like this in the game, and then you've got to like really match the exact tone and everything of that kind of track. I think it happens more in film. I've had that experience, but in game it's a little bit more loose. Like it was great actually in Mooncorp Tower Defense, which you can wishlist on Steam. I like, as soon as I jumped in the team, I like removed all the other music straight away, just so they didn't have it in their ears anymore when they were testing. Even though I just put my like temporary tracks in, it was still my music, and then they've forgotten now about the old music. They don't even remember, like, which is great, because then the game takes its own identity and comes to life in its own way. So, yeah.
But we're working also with references. I know sometimes with composers talked to, like, when they get a reference, they say reference, but they kind of want like, hey, I have a reference of this Donkey Kong track that I would love for you to compose around and make for our game. And then you compose something that is a reference to Donkey Kong and the music and the style. And they were like, no, it's not really exactly what we're looking for, because they're looking for exactly like that.
Yes.
Like, how do you feel about when people are like making references and so on? Like, is it easier to work around when you have more of a clear reference, but it still feels like wide?
Yeah, I think I'll ask for more than one reference at least.
Okay.
If they've got, I just want just this, then it's a bit more confining, as you say. Yeah. So I would advise like going, like I really like this 10 seconds, like you've done, like from 5 seconds to 16, and then there's this other track that does something similar. Having like more than one, and you can kind of channel both into its own new melting pot of character or whatever. Audio sort of. Signature audio sound, I think that is what makes it more unique.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I have two more questions before I feel like we're closing down this for this time.
No problem.
So the first one is usually the negative part about the compositions. Like, what is the hardest within development when you work with music?
Hardest part, I think. I mean, getting critical feedback is hard. If you're a sensitive person like I am, like I put a lot of heart and soul into it, just like any artist would do.
But we're talking about when the developer comes back with, or the one purchasing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, no, that's like you were saying, like, it doesn't fit what we wanted.
Yeah,
and you've got to really like take that on board as not a personal attack. It's just doesn't fit the game, or it doesn't fit the film, and I think having that good mentality of, it's not your music, it's the game's music. It's serving the game. It's, serving the art form of the film. I think that's probably the trickiest part for me at the moment. But, as you go more experience, you get used to it. And I think as you talk to more experienced composers, they're probably so super used to it. But it's still, it still hurts a little bit. But you're kind of like, yep, okay, it doesn't serve the game. All right, let's redo it. Let's try something different. Yeah. So I think that's probably the trickiest part.
And then to the more happier ones.
Sure.
So of course we gotta end it on top of something at least. So when it comes to composition, what is it that you like the most? What is the most fun when coming to composing?
Oh man, most fun thing about composing, I reckon, once you have this really sweet soaring melody that just works over the chords, or if you accidentally hit a note you didn't think would work and it just works, if sustained over a bunch of chords, or something like that, or a harmony that you try and it works, or it doesn't work and then you've tried something else. Just those little puzzle pieces that click, or gears that click together, I think are probably the most special to me. I find I'm like, oh, that's, it gets the excitement going, or you're like, oh, I've got to show someone this, like that kind of thing.
Sounds great.
Yeah, man.
No, but thank you so much for joining in, Dan.
Thanks, man.
I would love to have you around as well for I have a Discord and everything that you're more than welcome to join in.
Absolutely.
And if anybody on the Discord or somebody's listening to this episode, of course, they can reach out. Where can they find you?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'll for sure join in. That'd be great. The best place to find me, I suppose, is on Twitter at Dan Poole Audio. That's probably where I'm posting most. I do have Instagram, but barely use it, or on LinkedIn if you're, professionally minded. But yeah, that's where I'm posting most. Soon we'll get music on Spotify. I don't have too much out there on the internet at the moment, but
it will be there.
It will be there. Something will come this year.
also to keep in mind, it's Poole with an E at the end as well. So people just don't search for Poole and don't find anything.
That's right, yeah. DANPOOLE Audio. That's it.
Awesome,
man.
No, thank you so much for joining in.
Thanks, Chris.
I'm really honored to have had you here, to meet you and to talk and discuss a little bit more. Not everybody has heard all the things that we discussed. We've been talking so much about our lives. We've been challenging each other.
Daring each other to do random things.
Yeah. It was fun. It was super fun. So thank you so much for joining in.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Christopher.
Yeah, and for everybody else who's joining in on this episode, this was Gameable Audio, episode 38, if I remember correctly.
That's it.
So, numbers. And I am Christopher Schenström. I am the host of this podcast, Gameable Audio. I will, of course, not go through everything as I usually do because I don't remember everything bits and pieces. So I will just edit something in right here at the end. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for joining in and have a good one.
Have a good one.
And now as we return back to the non-pre-recorded episode, I hope everybody enjoyed and loved that episode together with Daniel Poole. And yet again, a special thanks to Nordic Game Conference, which basically went in and sponsored these episodes, made sure I was able to get there, but also were able to record in the room there together with these composers and interesting people that we will be listening to in the upcoming months, not months really, but in the upcoming episodes. So, but anyway, if you're interested, you can find other episodes of the Gameable Audio over at our homepage at videospelsklubben.se. You can also find it on Spotify or in your closest podcast app. Feel free to follow and comment on one of our social medias, either on Facebook or Instagram. Just search for the Gameable Audio and find us there. Just giving a follow or commenting on the posts helps a lot for other people to find the podcast. And if you feel like, hey, I want to do more, you can also support this podcast for future content upgrades, quality upgrades, and so on. But in the end, we are going to give money to future composers. So think about becoming a Patreon. Our current awesome backers that we do have today is none other than Daniel Onemark, Lars Schenström, Titti Schenström, Kevin Wikström, and Mike Björkholm. Links where you can buy and support some of the things that we've been talking to, and also follow and get to know Dan a little bit more. You'll find those at our main post at videospelsklubben.se. In our next episode, we're going to talk to another composer. This composer is named Razvan Kim. And this was also one of those pre-recorded Nordic Game Conference talks. And as always, the track that we're listening to for the theme of this podcast was and is always going to be now composed by the amazing Thor Myrdal. With that said, I want to thank everybody for listening in. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. Wait 2 more weeks and we will get another one. Have a good one, and see you all guys next time.